Dr. Barbara Provost and Maggie Nielsen are a dynamic mother-daughter duo committed to empowering women with the tools they need to make confident financial decisions. And they are the creators of Purse Strings, a platform with access to education, resources, and the best financial professionals. As a consultant, educator, and entrepreneur, Dr. Barb connects women with trusted financial professionals to help them plan for a future full of choices. Maggie, with her curious mindset and passion for personal growth, inspires others through motivational talks, and she equips women with the financial knowledge they need to thrive. Together, Barb and Maggie are dedicated to helping women build lives free from financial stress, thanks to the support of their community of trusted professionals. Welcome, Dr. Barb and Maggie.
Hello,
Thanks,
Tracy.
I am really happy to be talking with you today. You've been with me before. We always have such a good time. But I want to start by talking a little bit about purse strings, because the way I feel about this is there's lots and lots of resources on the internet. You can do all the Googling in the world and come up with a lot of information, but my concern is always about the quality of that information. And so I think resources like purse strings are so valuable, and I want our audience to know more about exactly what purse strings does.
At Purse Strings, we provide women free online tools, resources, guides, coursework that they can use wherever they are on their financial journey, whether they're going through a divorce or they're starting to save for retirement, or let's say they just want to know where their money's going, and starting to get their monies or their finances in order. And then when they need to make a move, let's say they decided, I need to start planning for retirement, or I'm going to finally file for divorce. I need to get some resources, or, I need to start saving for a home. What's the best way to do that? And what should I know about saving for a home? Wherever they are, like I said, on your financial journey, you can then go to our curated directory of Purse Strings approved professionals who have been vetted by us as those professionals who focus on a female market. They lead with education. They're seasoned and will be in the financial industry for a while. They're not just going to be stepping out in a year or whatever. And they can go ahead, look at their profile on our site, and go ahead from there and make an appointment to have a conversation with them. So it's really a go-to one-stop shop for all financial needs for women.
What I really love about Purse Strings is that you have vetted the professionals, right? You are confident in them, that they are people who are offering quality services, that they're going to be around for the long haul when women need them the most. So why did you two decide to start Purse Strings?
I guess for those who don't know, Barb and I are a mother-daughter duo, so we always get the gigglies together and just read by eyes. But Barb was making a lot of the education for the insurance and financial industry and could see how they were missing the female market. It was always just pushing a product, making that sale, and moving on to the next thing. Never really about building that relationship. And then she navigated a divorce with some women who asked a lot of those foundational questions of, can I afford to get divorced? What's the cash flow like in my house? And, these were really smart women who were asking these questions, and something seemed to be disconnected. And then we go to Target and Costco together and see women of retirement age bagging groceries and handing out snacks. And we knew something wasn't right. So we hired a researcher, and it came back that the insurance and financial industry won the award for being least sympathetic to women. And women were woefully underserved for their financial future. But we didn't want to stop there. We wanted to really see what women's experience was. And at that time, I was just starting college. I wasn't really saving for my retirement. But the most common thing people would say, or these women would say, is their financial professional didn't even look at them. And to me, I was just fathom that these people are handing over their life savings and their future to someone who doesn't even look at them. That was astounding to me. And so that's where we really just jumped in, because we wanted to make sure these women had these professionals, because your retirement, we get one go at it, right? So we want to make sure we get it right. We have enough resources to sustain us. And if we're going to be paying these professionals, there's a level of service that we're looking for. And so we want to make sure that women have these right professionals to turn to, because there is, like you said, Tracy, a lot of noise out there, a lot of things that are kind of hard to know if you can trust or not.
It's so interesting in this day and age that when buying things or receiving services, if you have a heterosexual husband and wife, how often the professional will talk to the husband. I have had the experience of going to buy a car for me with
Mm-hmm.
my money, me asking a question and having the salesperson direct the answer to my partner. Are you kidding me? And he will say, she's buying the car. This is her car. You answer her. Or, just between couples talking about their financial advisor and the husband saying, oh, we've got a guy. And you go meet with the guy and the guy acts like the wife is not even there.
Yep.
It's just unfathomable to me that this still happens.
If she can't look at you while she's there, like how are you in the plan then? How is he planning for you if he can't even look at you? That doesn't make sense. It doesn't add up.
And the thing is, she's not really in the plan. I mean, a lot of times women ask, they just tell me, nobody ever asked me what I wanted in my retirement. Like, no one ever asked that question. I never really thought about it. And that's why today the financial industry is leaving $700 billion on the table. Today, not to mention the fact that women are coming into the largest transference of history to the tune of $30 trillion, and women will own the purse strings of America.
I love that. I want to know how divorce became a thing that purse strings decided to focus on with resources and education.
Yeah, I'll take that since I have gone through divorce. And when I went through it, like Maggie said, I was lucky enough to meet this kind of small group of women that we met once a week. And it was really headed up by a psychologist so that we could kind of think through what this divorce was, what was happening to us, how we don't repeat bad decision making, so on and so forth. And it was really a tight-knit group of women. And I found that I Googled divorce mediator, and went to some guy. That's how I found my mediator. He was terrible. I then Googled the attorney that had to take it to court, right? I met with him once, 30 minutes before we went into court. And the other thing is I never, ever had any professional work with me to go through everything I should have gone through. So I was also victim of, let's get through this, let's get this over with, not taking the time I needed and dedicated to really ensure, was this the best way to go about my divorce? And now in this world, I see there are so many amazing resources out there that I wanted to ensure women had at their fingertips and that they knew about, because so much is, we don't know what we don't know, but Purse Strings is pushing out all this information and lots of social media and lots of strategies so that women have this information and know and learn and know that they can ask these questions, that these resources are available to them and why they would use them.
And to add on that, we also saw, Barb's not the only one of her age getting divorced. That gray divorce is happening 3 times the rate as any other divorce. So we knew that for women, this content needed to be out there because it was so applicable to all these people's lives. And we didn't want anyone to feel like I'm the only one going through this, because we all feel that way about these things that really everyone else is also going through with. So we wanted to make sure these women, had those resources, didn't just have to turn to, Google and work with somebody that, only met with you for 30 minutes, but would be there and help you through this process so you can have that future afterwards, as positive as it could be.
Well, for those gray divorces, women who are in their 50s, 60s, 70s getting divorced, most likely they will not have been involved in the finances in their families, right? I mean,
Yeah.
I don't have hard statistics, but I know it's a very, very high percentage of them have been completely hands off with the money during their marriages. And that leaves them at a really great risk of not getting a proper settlement in their divorce.
I was going to say, the thing about that to me is like, women didn't even have access to credit cards, not that long ago. And so some of these women, got married right when they were 18 or 20. That's when just they were allowed to even get credit cards, but their husband had it handled. So it was something they never needed to do. They were never part of that conversation. It's kind of been that timeline. So it's not surprising, but I also don't want people to feel like I should have known, because you're right. No one was coming to you with the information. You kind of moved on from your dad to your husband, and that's just kind of how it went. I understand why you were never included, but that does need to change.
And the impacts of those decisions are are huge, right? Perhaps she didn't build any credit on her own, never made a financial purchase on her own, was not at the table making financial decisions around investments or future, probably didn't even know what their net worth was. And ultimately, because the population's aging, men die first, and women lose in divorce, they did themselves a disservice, but so did the financial industry because they totally ignored women and didn't invite them to the table and make them part of the conversation. And so what I say is women, are left holding a bag. And then just then do they realize what they're left with because they've never been part of the conversation.
Well, let's talk about getting a divorce team involved when you're getting divorced. We're starting to hear more and more about that. And I think the traditional thought is, well, if I'm getting divorced, I get an attorney and you have him or her go to town on your case, and that's all you need. But more and more people are talking about a team. So I want to know your thoughts on why it's so important to have a team working with you.
When I was going through a divorce, a friend of mine was also going through a divorce, and she said, "Will you go with me to court?" And I said, "Sure." She had a divorce attorney who is the worst person I've ever met. And I remember thinking, why are you paying this woman? Is this what we get? I mean, is this what we deserve? This horrible, no communication, no conversation, no negotiation. It just felt so icky. And I think women need to know that they have choices, right? That they can talk with a mediator, that they can interview divorce attorneys, that they don't have to be at the hands of an attorney that is going to take over their lives. They need to have conversations with them and see if there's a win-win. But also, there's so many other pieces and parts involved. Oftentimes, there's a house. Do you sell the house? Do you keep the house? Well, if you're selling a house, you need a realtor. You may need a mortgage lender if you're going to then buy another property. So as part of your divorce team, we've mentioned mediator, we've mentioned attorney, we've mentioned realtor, and even with a lender, you can get a CDLP, Certified Divorce Lending Professional. And also you might have a divorce coach. I mean, there are all these people that have expertise in their own lanes outside of just your financial professional or certified divorce financial analyst. They all have their own areas of expertise, and that team together can help you make the best decisions.
And we think that team is so important because the attorney, they're an expert at the law, but they're not the expert at managing a loan or knowing your finances. And the biggest thing I've learned about divorce and divorce finances is $1 today is not $1 tomorrow. And it depends what bucket that dollar is in. So the money in the house is not equal to the money in the 401k. And so you need someone who knows finances and can really predict what the future will look like once you leave this marriage, versus an attorney who's expert at the law, which is also needed or can be needed, but it's separate. And so having this team really can help you answer all your questions holistically rather than just have an attorney handle all of it. And it can be cheaper sometimes as well. As I know, attorneys charge by every couple of minutes. And so a lot of people feel pressured about getting their questions out, getting things answered, don't really ask what they want to ask or take that time to understand. We're having like a CDFA and really having them sit there and understand the finances and have a much lower hourly rate can be really beneficial to your whole kind of divorce plan there. And so that's why I also like to emphasize that a team can also be cheaper, which doesn't always make sense logically, but when you dive in, it's true.
So if I was new to divorce, I'm just going to file for divorce, get into this process, where would I start with trying to put together a team? Like, who would be the most important people that I'd want to think about, or the first place that I would start to make sure that I'm approaching this process correctly?
Well, first of all, a lot of people call an attorney right away, from what I understand. And even financial professionals who are seasoned and went through divorce, they said, I made mistakes. I was too close. I thought I could handle my own finances. But really, you need to consider, is it mediation, which is much less expensive, or is it an attorney? And you need to interview those people and not feel beholden to the first person that you reach out to, because it's very, very, very expensive. So I would say the first thing to do is really determine, are you at a place where you think you could work through mediation, which is what I did? Or is this at a place where you really think you need an attorney, which might be a whole different situation? So first I would start there, but prior to even those phone calls, it's about getting your own ducks in a row, getting your own paperwork together, making sure you have access to your own accounts. And really, at Purse Strings, we have resources that will guide you through the steps of gathering all the documentation that you can do on your own time so that you are not being charged by an attorney or somebody else you're talking to that's going to tell you the same thing and what documents to get together. And then you might want to start there and then see what are your decisions around housing or other decisions that you're going to make during this divorce process. So I would say first, mediator and or an attorney, and I wouldn't hire anyone until you really had thorough conversations, as well as a financial professional who has a certified divorce financial analyst designation.
Maggie, what do you think?
I would say I would start with the CDFA, the Certified Divorce Financial Analyst, and they can really sit with you and assess the finances and see like, all right, so this is kind of what a split would look like. This is what your future income would look like. Do you want to do this? This is kind of what it would look like. Do you want to go ahead? And if you want to go ahead, then they can start having some more of those conversations with you and help you reach out to that attorney and start making a plan. But I think at first, sometimes it's the most nerve-wracking thing is the finances. And if you can sustain life, as a single person, because that is more expensive. And so I would just start at the CDFA to have them assess everything you've got and say, if we were to play this out, this is what it would look like. Do you want that? Should we go ahead with that?
I would add one more thing, and that's don't rush the process. Oftentimes I hear women, and I did the same thing, let's just get through this. I want to move on. And then in hindsight, you think, I should have thought through this. I should have thought through that. I made some decisions that were probably not the best for myself. And you don't want regrets. You have a one-time shot at making sure you're making the best decisions at that time.
Yeah, I agree with you. The practice of trying to rush through it and just get it over with because it is so emotionally draining. I get it that you want to get it over with, but these financial decisions especially are going to impact you for the rest of your life. And especially if you are around retirement age, getting close to it, you don't have a lot of time left to save money for retirement. You have to get as much as you can in that divorce settlement to make sure you have proper savings for retirement. That's your one chance to get what you need.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
Talk to me about how that CDFA, the Certified Divorce Financial Analyst, can really help you, not just through the divorce process, but really help you think about securing that financial future after the divorce.
Yeah, so they're really experts and have that designation to understand more of divorce financials. And so they can help you assess, if you were to take this option, this is what your future would look like, whether that be retirement accounts, moving homes, what your income would be. But they can also help you pick a different option because there's not just one way to split assets. And so they can help you with some of those decisions of, can I afford to keep the home? Or, what kind of spousal support should I be looking for? Do I need to go out and get a second job or a job? And so some of those, they can help you with those decisions and, really assess what that best next path could be for you.
And I would say they can look at the tax consequences, which we often hear is, if divisions are made of the assets, sometimes people haven't considered the tax consequences long term.
Yeah, they're forgetting that 10 years from now, when you sell that home that you kept, you're going to have maybe a taxable situation, and that's really going to eat into your savings and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that I see a lot is decisions surrounding the home are not thought through enough. So women are far more likely to want to keep that home without thinking about how much it's going to cost them. They look at the mortgage payment and say, well, that mortgage payment is less than it would cost me to go rent an apartment right now. So that makes a lot of sense. What they've forgotten about is you're in a 30-year-old house that's going to need a lot of maintenance, that's going to need a new roof or a new furnace and all these kinds of things. And there's a really much larger financial picture that they don't consider, and they make this emotional decision of, I want to keep that house.
All the time. We hear that all the time. And I remember like post-divorce, Barb and I were living together, and it was a lot like of like, who's shoveling the snow? Who's mowing the lawn? You know, like we have to change these filters and light bulbs, like these things that we've never done before. I mean, we've done, but you know, you have to get back to doing because you're running the full house by yourself. And you know, that's why we say a certified divorce loan professional would be really helpful, because
Yes.
it's also like you can buy out the other person, but can you take that mortgage on by yourself or with that, you know, alimony? Well, how many years are you getting that alimony to pay into that loan of the house? And so there's so many different moving parts that you do really want to assess it. And I know, you know, home has a lot of memories, but there's also like great options when you move as well, and can give you some more freedom to have people over to that house. You know, sometimes we just become house poor if all our money's in the house. We can't really do anything else then when emergencies come up.
I see so many women giving up retirement funds in
Mm-hmm.
exchange for, quote, keeping the house. So you have now kept an asset that has a lot of ongoing costs, and your retirement is significantly impacted because you don't have that nest egg for the coming years.
Yep.
Yeah, I see it too. And like you said, maintenance is a nightmare. It's never ending. I mean, I don't want to have to deal with a sump pump ever again. And I don't have to. I just don't. I mean, I've had to deal with a lot of the work professionals coming in, you know, the dishwasher broke, and I just don't want to have to deal with it.
So when you're choosing your professionals in your divorce, what can you do to make sure that you have got people working with you who really are interested in supporting your goals, protecting your interests, and really working for you rather than just bossing you around and telling you you should do this, that, or the other?
I would start with, you know, picking a couple professionals off purse strings and then having a conversation with, you know, 2 or 3 of them yourself to see, you know, sometimes people resonate more than others. You like their style or not. Kind of ask them about the process and any questions that you would have, you know, if that's how you would support me, or what are your thoughts, or what's your experience, or do you have clients like me, you know, to see what their experience is, because you want someone who's done this 50 times at least now, right?
At least.
Not at least, right? Like they're going to have done this 1,000 of times. But I would really interview them, even though these are all really great vetted professionals. See who resonates with you, see what their style and their communication is like, see what their follow-up is after that call, if they've given you some really good nuggets and some tips along the way, to trust that gut feeling. Because that's something we really need to, I think, do more, is just trust that original gut feeling, because we're usually right about it.
Yeah, and I would also say ask around. Maybe they wondered if they give you any referrals, people they've worked with in the past that maybe you could talk to, because you're going to make a big investment if you're working with an attorney, and you just don't want them to bleed you dry, which I've heard that can happen. Not with our purse strings professionals, of course, because they're in it for your best interest. But I've seen it happen, where they just drag things out, and it becomes such a money pit because you're going to court for this, going to court for that, and that's just a mess. And we want it to be an experience that's going to be tough. It's going to be tough for sure, but you have the right professionals, you have the right support team to get you through it. You have people you can lean on, ask questions of, help make decisions, and then get through it and be on the other side to a whole new beautiful life.
Well, we've talked a lot about money today, and I know you have a free resource for our listeners to help them figure out where their money is going. We're going to link to that in the show notes and link to the Purse Strings website, of course, but tell us about this resource.
The first step on managing our money, whether we're in a partnership or not, is just knowing where it's going, what's coming in and what's going out, so we know what to do with that money. So this is just a sheet you could print out or do online to really walk through all your money and see where it's going. And if you're thinking about, how am I going to afford this as one, kind of chart out on there. What would all these expenses be? What would the income need to be for all those outgoing expenses? So this is something you can either just look at monthly or look at every quarter to understand where is all your money going. And then you can assess from there how to make the most of it.
I love that. So much good stuff today to kind of help us get our wits about us. Divorce is a really difficult time, a really emotional time. And I appreciate you spending time with me today to help people kind of get the lay of the land and really start thinking about who's going to be on their side in the divorce. Dr. Barb and Maggie, thank you again for being here. It was great talking with you.
Always great talking with you, Tracy. Thank you for the invite.
Thanks, Tracy. This was fun.